long video short here. Inscryption is the shit. Yeah, sorry to spoil that one for you, but wrapping up all the games that I played last year, it became such a blatantly clear as day obvious choice to award my game of the year to this wonderfully deceptive roguelike card game. And chances are by now you've at least heard about Inscryption.
Today is actually Inscryption's 1-year anniversary. Happy birthday! And since then, the game has garnered over 70,000 positive reviews on Steam and counting, which is insane. Granted, it was a computer exclusive most of the year and only just recently made it on home consoles, but still! Inscryption was nominated for a few game awards, and just comparing it to a few of those games, it's garnered more positivity on Steam than Deathloop, Psychonauts 2, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Life is Strange True Colors combined. It out Steam reviewed them in the game's first 2 months, and a year later, that hasn't changed. As of now, it's out Steam reviewed a hat in time, and that game's almost 5-year lifespan. It's a game that's become so huge, you could see it from space. Vancouver-based Daniel Mullin started as a programmer in the games industry until he released his first commercial indie game, Pony Island. That game went on to become a critical darling, earning high review scores from both PC Gamer and IGN. Back in 2018, while wrapping up his next game, The Hex, he participated in the Ludum Dare 43 Game Jam, or the Ludum Dare Game Jam if you want to sound fancy, or correct. I never really bothered to look up how to pronounce that, but I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. Ludum Dare, for those who don't know, is a competition where you develop a game in one dedicated 48-hour weekend, or a separate group with a longer development time, both sharing a common theme. The theme for that game jam was Sacrifices Must Be Made, and as a gamer himself, Mullins was getting back into Magic the Gathering. He entered into Ludum and wanted to explore the theme with a similar card game all about sacrificing things. So Mullins made his game as the same name as the theme, maybe a little bit cocky there, and it did incredibly well, taking second place in the overall combo section of the jam. So after finishing up the Hex, he decided his next larger project was going to expand on the Game Jam game, which eventually became Inscryption as we know today. And the original Game Jam project of making sacrifices to get beefier cards is the core mechanic here. You'll have to put down cards on the table to serve as sacrifices to unlock cards with larger attacks from your hand. I would describe the game as an escape room, folk song-esque, horror-like, roguelike made for those who have a fondness for Magic the Gathering or the Pokemon trading card game. That's a lot, but let me explain. Basically, you're stuck inside a cabin with a mysterious figure that challenges you to a card game to trust the heart of the cards, for what purpose we don't yet know. That's the folk song part. You go through multiple runs and are able to build a stronger deck and unlock new abilities as you go. And each round where you're losing feels like you're making a little bit of progress, and nothing feels like a cheap death. It's clear that Daniel Mullins and developers spent a good amount of time balancing out the cards, where all the risk and reward decisions and the little extra tricks you can implement find your way through. And the room around you are where those extra puzzles come into play, as they unlock secrets to get more of the story and to help you build a stronger deck. Deciding which path you want to proceed to, trying your luck to beef up your cards or risk losing them, and even when you're about to win a match to see which extra items you like to save for later. And I'm purposefully only showing about an hour of gameplay here because alas, a lot of the reasons I'm giving this my game of the year are a massive spoiler. No, seriously, don't skim ahead to the rest of the video to see what I have to say. Inscryption really is like Undertale, and that you should really experience this one for yourselves, going in as blind as possible. The game is absolutely excellent. Wishlist it or wait for a console version if you have to. I implore you, this is one not to be missed. And I'm going to be entering spoiler land in 3, 2, 1. Fans of this game, online publications reviewing it, and for the most part Devolver Digital have been very smart about hiding a lot of what the game has to offer. And the second I was able to unlock a new game, and after that, I could not get enough of this thing. Holy shit, there's a second part? And it's like the Pokemon trading card game where you can build decks? There are 3 other sub-bosses with their own mechanics to them. I can use jewels to add buffs, and other characters with electricity. There's so much I can do with that. And then there's the whole story with the influencer Luke. In all the years that I've spent playing games and watching movies, I can guess how a story is going to play out. Link will be able to save Hyrule, I'm going to get my revenge for Japan in Ghost of Tsushima, and even amongst indie games, I'm going to beat the devil in Cuphead. I was reminded of watching Parasite for the first time in that I legitimately had no idea where Inscryption was going, what was going to happen to the characters, where the original disc came from, who those card characters were in the beginning, and so on. Afterwards, I looked up videos and Steam discussions to really dive into the game's lore. It has a Five Nights at Freddy's element to it of discovering the story, except the gameplay isn't centered around jump scares, but a really solid, polished, and in-depth card system. I've been on Discord with a friend of mine who coincidentally also gave the game a perfect score. Toasty! And as I was playing, I'm like, oh, you got to that part. Oh, you got to this part. The last time I remember talking about friends this much in depth about a game was Breath of the Wild. I cannot overstate how much I gushed about this game's many hidden surprises, and I'm only going to name a few. There's a boss that uses your friend's Steam account and turns them into cards battling you. Toasty! You have to use actual files on your computer and gain extra health points depending on the size of the files. The Paranormal Activity-esque breakdown of Luke. How Daniel Mullins and Devolver went out of their way to make an actual entire YouTube channel from Luke with a Lucky Carter, giving lots of fun cryptic lore to dive into.
What the is going on?
There's one boss fight that purposefully uses game-breaking mechanics to it. At that point, the game is just flat out showing off about how great it is.
Mullins has shown enormous growth as a developer since his debut game Pony Island, which was touching on a lot of the same ideas, using meta gameplay mechanics to try and escape out of the pit of hell of playing the game. But Pony Island, that is the game within the game, which is generic with a confusing control scheme that's supposed to be a hellish experience, Inscryption's card system is a polished, in-depth game that's open to strategy and risk and reward mechanics. It makes Inscryption's pacing feel a lot more smooth. The longer story breaks were the welcome rewards, but actually playing the game was just as rewarding itself. Mullins has also stated the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series as being a big inspiration, and it was delightful to have the moon be the final boss in the cabin, and the dual disc launcher showing up at the climax, which was a delightfully nerdy nod. Granted, the first part of the cabin is rightfully challenging and really made me plan and think about what I wanted to do, the 2D and Bottopia sections felt a lot easier to get through in comparison. It was still a challenge, but it didn't feel like as much of an accomplishment as the first part. That's my biggest criticism about Inscryption. We get a taste of using the electricity and the gems in the game, but we never get a difficult enough challenge where we plan out and how to get the best out of our decks. I do remember, at least in the Pokemon trading card game of the Game Boy Color, you had to do some planning and take some time to be the very best, and I wish there was an extra mode here, or a more difficult setting to really utilize those extra cards. Well, there is some good news in the form of Kaycee's mod. This is an extra free mode they added to the currently 3D half of the game, where you start off with a limited deck and have to make it to the end with a modifier limiting your abilities. Unfortunately, as of making this video, this extra mode is a bit limited. When you lose, and you will be losing a few times, there isn't really much of any progress in terms of making or getting new cards to beef yourself up, and all of the fun extra deck building you can do in the 2D section of the game isn't here at all. This is a very welcome mode. It will test your skill and has a lot of hidden extra lore to sink into, and it's still very limited with what the base game is capable of. I'm hoping for more extras and updates along the way, but Kaycee's mod will have to do for now. I'm certainly no experienced developer in knowing how hard it is to implement an extra mode, but I would love to see them make some kind of multiplayer part of this. And Devolver has special reserve games, not just for their physical games, but the board game Reigns, and if they somehow dedicated a full physical card game for Inscryption, they'd make a killing.
You know what that is? You know what that is? Vintage packs of Inscryption. 4 of them.
And I come to the point where me saying I want more of the game is sort of the ultimate irony of it. The lesson it has to offer is how diving too much into Pandora's box can spell doom, as it did for poor Luke and potentially for others that have found the hidden original disc. This is a game that very much invites you to investigate and search deeper and deeper into this possibly demonic curse. Finding out about the larger hidden secrets and solving the mystery is part of what makes Luke both a victim and the reason for his own downfall. His obsession and curiosity when he got too close and how he almost unleashed something incredibly dangerous onto the internet and to humanity. Yet he pursues his curiosity, perhaps even against his own free will. It's all a metagame about asking for too much, yet it invites you to explore further down the rabbit hole with this augmented reality game. In Pony Island, that was a game that was supposed to be intentionally a gateway to a torturous hell, and the irony here is that when the gameplay is great, it can still lead you into hell. And, well, even with that meta lesson, the ultimate irony is that I still want more. Maybe that whole message is a bit of an Andy Kaufman-esque troll where Mullins and Devolver laugh at how much we don't get the message, but I don't think that's entirely true. Here's when that changes. Those extra messages in the ARG found in the game were decoded by some incredibly smart folks on Mullin's Discord. YouTuber Flemonade, and I am genuinely jealous of that name,
did a whole video about how the Discord community decoded those messages. I recommend watching the whole video since the ARG is all done. It's pretty wild how they figured it all out. Actually, you can watch it right now. Oh wait. Oh wait, you don't have an hour to spare right now. That's the whole idea of me breaking up these videos.
Long story short, they found real-life coordinates to find an extra clue that ultimately culminated in a real-life website
Where 3 real-life people gave real-life addresses
to receive a real-life floppy disk in real life. Is this real life? In getting those coordinates, Mullin himself and Kevin Saxby, the actor who plays Luke, joined them in finding those actual discs.
Mullin is clearly having a blast making that ARG.
And allowing others to uncover the secrets to the game. It's one of those rare games that openly invites you to dig into those deep secrets front and center. Everything you see of the tragedy of poor Luke is all after the fact of how the Steam page even came to be, and in the way the internet gathering together to uncover the secrets that in a small way may avenge Luke. He was ultimately trying to do the right thing by exposing and destroying the Inscryption disc, and us uncovering the mystery is in a way a form of justice. I mean, obviously this is all fake and Game Funa isn't a real thing, but even outside of the game in the real world, Mullin and his team found ways to impress.
You're not supposed to have that. But
It says Inscryption on it. What do you mean?
just don't take that, okay?
This is the first game I've played from Daniel Mullin, and the talent and passion that went into this one is off the charts. It has a solid and well-balanced difficulty, a story that had me glued to the screen. I wrote down notes for clues and looked up the game's lore outside of playing it.
And even outside of the game, it found ways to impress, that are maybe standard for ARG games, but the idea of putting that front and center for people to solve is an amazing touch. I know my channel is built on being mostly positive, and I say a lot of nice things all the time about different games, but I want you to understand with complete sincerity that Inscryption is masterful. It is a truly excellent treasure of a game.
A once-in-a-year gem that's earned every ounce of hype you've heard about. I don't know if Daniel Mullin will have it in him to make something as impactful as Inscryption again. Something I know is dangerous to say that Inscryption is a masterpiece, in setting him up for unrealistic expectations going forward as an artist. For me, if he were a filmmaker like Martin Scorsese, I'm hoping this will be his Taxi Driver. Important, impactful, it very much defines part of what the artist is all about, and hopefully will be the very first of many more masterpieces. And Daniel Mullin, if you are watching this video and are up for it, I would love to show my appreciation to you if you and me could get together. And those are my favorite games that I played in 2021. And yes, it is just impossible to play every single indie game that came out last year. Feel free to sound off in the comments about your favorite indie games from last year. And of course, if you'd like to see more videos, hit the bell, subscribe, and do all that fun stuff. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.